Hey guys, how are you tonight? My name is Tabitha and I own McHarper Manor. We are an art and DIY studio in Cincinnati, Ohio, actually in Milford, a little suburb of Cincinnati. And I'm a graphic artist and illustrator, but also an art educator. So I primarily teach kids, but I like to teach intergenerational art, which is basically art that can be done by the entire family. So that's kind of where we live in the art realm. We like to do stuff that is very beginner friendly and accessible for everyone. So I'm so glad you joined me this evening. Thank you, Michaels and Derwent, for having me. I think we're gonna have an awesome time. So tonight we are going to work on a sweet little gnome. He is sized, if you use the template, he's sized to make a 5x7 card. So I have my watercolor paper at 7x10, and I'm just going to fold it over when I'm finished to make that card. Okay. So you want to make sure that you do your little gnome on the right hand side of your long piece of paper. Okay. So for this tonight, we're going to need the watercolor paper. We're also going to need this template if you are tracing him. If you're going to draw your own, you definitely don't need a template either. But we're going to end up with a little guy. It's kind of like this. Okay. I'm using Derwent's Inktense pencils to fill him in tonight. I'm using a few different colors. So I'm using Scarlet Pink. I'm using Carmine Pink. I'm using green aquamarine, which is a really nice, like deep teal color. And then dark aquamarine, which is a brighter turquoise. I'm using neutral gray and a little bit of Sicilian yellow that I'm going to use for the cheeks. This little gnome has eyes because I wanted him to be, a little unconventional, a little bit happier and bright-eyed. So we are using a little bit of that yellow in there for his skin tone. We're going to mix it a little bit. I'm going to show you guys how you can layer these pencils and make them work. These pencils are watercolor pencils. The Derwent Inktense pencils are really cool because they're water soluble. They draw and fill in, color in, and shade like a colored pencil, but you can use their water brushes to activate it, or you could use a regular brush as well. You can use just any round brush if you would like. And there's also the alternative of using just a watercolor pan. So I love Inktense's just their studio pan set, which is the big set that has all the colors. I use that a lot too. And if we have time, I'll show you how we can kind of integrate the two of them together. But the colors, again, I saw somebody ask real quick. I use Sicilian yellow, neutral gray, dark aquamarine, green aquamarine, scarlet pink, and carmine pink. And that's just going to be, I'm going to leave these right at the top. It's just going to be pinks and teals, a little bit of gray and a little bit of yellow, just to give him some little Scandinavian skin tone. You can make whatever color you would like. Do not feel like you have to stick with mine. You do you on this one. So graphite paper is going to be helpful for us on this one. If you want to trace this little gnome guy, graphite paper, you want to use the shiny side down. Anybody that has ever used graphite paper has probably made this mistake at some point where you've done the shiny side up, and that's just going to trace it right onto the back. So you want to go shiny side down. And then we're going to line this little guy up on the edge. Okay, so we're going to put our graphite paper shiny side down, and then we line our little gnome up on the edge. If you want to use a piece of tape, washi tape, masking tape, anything like that, you can grab a teeny tiny piece and just kind of stick everybody together so that nothing moves. You'll want to hit all three layers, okay, just to make sure everybody stays put. For me, I just use my non-dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I'll use my left hand to hold it down, and I will go across with a pen or a pencil. So I start at the top left, just so that I don't miss anything, and I follow all of the lines that I've created. And when you use the graphite paper, don't feel like you have to push really hard. It's very dark on its own. So just follow along the lines and draw right over the lines. If there's something in here, like say you didn't like the lines or the words, say you just wanted to do just the gnome, you only trace what you want to transfer. If you wanted to leave, you know, say you didn't like the U down here and you wanted to do your own different version of the word you, leave it off and draw it yourself with your pencil when you're finished. So graphite paper is great for a nice starting tool to get a project like this started. And when I'm going in and I want thicker lines, you can outline the outside of the word. So on my downstrokes where they're wider, you can outline the outside of those big downstrokes so that you know the proper thickness if you want yours to look just like mine. So on the outside of this E, I'm just tracing the inside and the outside of the line. And then on this one, obviously, I'll trace the whole thing. When you're working with graphite paper, you do not get to erase. Once you've applied pressure, it's on there. So don't waste any time trying to erase. If you've put something down that you don't like, just kind of forget about it. And you can sometimes use like a really sandy grit eraser to get rid of some of it, but you can actually just ignore it on the page. And sometimes a little bit of white acrylic paint is just what you need to go right over top of any stray marks that you've made if you can't cover them up with paint or pencil on your own. So I'm outlining his little hat and the creases in his hat. And I've left his hat blank for you because I want you guys to decide whatever patterns you want to put inside of your little gnome's hat. But I'm going to show you how to do a repeating heart pattern on mine. And then his little eyes. I just circle around the outside so that I can fill those in with pen. All right, so if you've got it taped, the best way to check is just to leave your tape down and lift them up and see if everything transferred through. If it did, you're all finished. Now, if you don't have graphite paper, there's also a cheater way that you can do this as well. And I want to show you real quick because I think we've got plenty of time. You can also go around. You can see where the lines are where we've copied this image. You can just take your pencil really gently and go on the side edge of your lead and follow it all the way around and cover up the back side of anywhere that there are lines printed, right? So for instance, we'll just do his little face real quick. And you just want to shade over all of that really quick. And then I'll show you on this paper over here, my scrap paper. You can go over his little nose again, where we just did that. And you're just pushing that graphite onto the paper from the back of your paper. And when you lift it up, da-da-da, it's pretty light. It's hard for you guys to see on here, but you can see a little bit of it. Let me see if I get closer, if you can see. You can see it's a really nice light one. Sometimes that works better than the carbon paper if you are doing like a really intricate watercolor design and you don't want to have these deep dark lines and you're using a lot of really light colors in your watercolor. Sometimes I even prefer that. So just depends on what you're working with. If you are okay with a big line being there, we are going to go over our line with a felt tip permanent waterproof pen.
Tabitha, could we have you show the original image again, all colored in, please?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll stick him right here. Yeah, he lives right there. All right, so we are going to go over our little guy with pen. I prefer to do it at the very end of my project after it's all dry, but for the sake of time, because we're going to be doing this and have it wrapped up like in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to line it first. Since it's waterproof, it's not going to move. Sometimes the reason I like to do it at the very end is because I kind of use the black lines here to hide any of my imperfections. Like if I have an area that I go a little over, I might move my black line over a little bit. So if you would prefer to have your black lines at the end, you can do that. But tonight we're going to use our black liner pen first. So I'm going to start by just lining out the lettering. And I'm just going to cover up all of my graphite. And like I said earlier, if there's something that you really messed up on your transfer and you're like far into it and it's not worth starting over for you, you can always grab a dab of white acrylic paint and cover up any of that graphite too, if a really gritty sandy eraser doesn't work for you either. And I saw somebody pop up and ask about the colors again. I'm going to turn these this way so that you can read them on the screen if they'll all stay put. If not, I'll just tell you again, it's Sicilian yellow, neutral gray, dark aquamarine, green aquamarine, scarlet pink, and carmine pink. But use what you have. I mean, these are just the colors that I used. You do not have to do the same exact color scheme. All right, so on these calligraphy letters, the thick downstrokes, I double line it and then I just fill it in, okay? So if I am doing any type of cursive font, and so on like when we go the downstroke, that's where I outline and fill it in, okay? That's what makes it look like the brush lettering. So then on I, that's the upstroke. And then on the downstroke, I'm going to fill that back in a little thicker over there. And then on K, we go up and the downstroke is really long here. So then we fill that in and give him. Now on these little downstrokes, I don't always do it, but on the big downstrokes, that's where I fill these broad lines in, just so that you understand what you're filling in here. And last one is going to be the E. Okay, so once you're finished with those letters, you can go back through sometimes a little bit of the graphite that when we apply pressure with our hand, it gives us those little smudgies. So you can go back through with your pencil eraser and clean up any of those little lines. Light amounts of graphite will come off, big, deep parts won't. Wait till your letters are dry from filling it in, or you'll smudge everywhere. And that just cleans it up a little bit. Okay, and then we will outline our little gnome. So I'm only going to outline the outside of the gnome, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do with his little hearts and patterns in here. And if you don't have a liner pen, like I said, you could always wait until the end and do it over top. It doesn't have to be waterproof if you are doing it over top of your watercolor. We're just using waterproof because we don't want it to move when we paint or sketch any of these colors in and blend them with water. His little eyeballs, I'm going to fill in his little eyeballs, but I am going to leave a tiny bit of white into them. With watercolor, you always want to leave the white because we don't have a white that we can put that's opaque enough to not really to resemble the same whiteness as our sheet of paper. So I just kind of circle a little white out and leave it in there. Then I will go through and connect the little beard line. And then try to clean up any of these little, lighten up any of these lines that I missed. Again, I typically line things at the end because I'm not always the best at following my own outlines. All right, so he is ready to play. Now you can decide if you want to do hearts on this guy, if you want to do stripes for his outfit. If you want to do him the same way that I did this one, we are going to do a cute little heart repeating pattern all over the top of his hat, and then we'll do stripes on the bottom. What makes this super cute is that he could be for any time of year, or he could be specifically for Valentine's Day. It's really up to you. The hearts, we want to start with just pick a heart anywhere you want to start, and then we'll kind of build those in around it, but we do want some to go off the edge. We don't want them to all be centered and not have anything on the edge, because then it looks less realistic. So we'll have some spots where we have, like, you know, just the edge of a heart that you can see. And I want these hearts to be like various sizes too. So you might see a little one here and like a little one here, and then maybe a big one here. But again, he is going to go off the edge of the hat. And you just really want to create some visual interest with it going off the little edges of his hat. And then we'll go all the way up till about where his hat starts to flip over. And then we're going to change direction on the hearts, because we're going to assume that this pattern that's on his hat is, you know, all facing the same way. So we want it to look realistic, and we're going to turn our paper. Okay, so we'll turn our paper and we'll start to move our little hearts in the opposite direction, like they are, I want to give one off the edge here, like they're going over to the top of his little, the ball top of the hat. So we'll keep drawing some more hearts, but now they're upside down. So just random sizes, random placement, and occasionally let one run off the edge, and that will make it look more natural. And when you're all finished, flip them back over and ta-da! There he is. And then for his little outfit, you can just run some, if you want to take a straight edge, like say you wanted to make sure that your lines really matched up, you can use you could use a pencil, you could use a straight edge ruler, whatever you would like, and just connect those sides of his outfit together underneath his little beard. Okay, so you can run it side by side and just make them about the same distance apart. Nobody's really going to notice. I don't measure anything, so. And then when I get up further, all of mine just get eyeballed. But that makes them look stripy. The other place that we are going to have some detail lines is going to be up here in his little beard. All right. We are going to have just some normal little textural downstrokes. If you like that look, awesome. If you want it to look like he has a little mustache, we could even add a little mustache on. I'll show you how to do a little mustache here. He could have a little furry mustache under there. And then add some more texture down there. And these are just going to help us to keep all of our strokes going down. But that's it. He's ready to rock and roll. We are going to start filling him in. So I have my water brushes. These are like a medium round brush. I have a small one and a little bit larger one just to give me a spot for tight spaces. Like here in the corners, I might use the smaller one, but they're about equivalent to a size 6 and maybe a size 2 or 3 round brush. And they are very easy to use with this medium. If we are, let's say we're going to use our darkest pink. So I like to swatch everything before I commit to it. I have little pieces of paper that I use that I cut off when I'm making cards. So I'll take a little bit of this carmine pink and I will spread it on here. And then I'll put this other pink, the scarlet pink, right next to it. And I will see how I like those colors. I'll prime my water pen with a little bit of water, push the button, wait till I see bubbles of water on the table, and then we're good. And you can see how easy these blend. They blend really nicely. And then I can see how far I can pull that pigment out too. So I can get a really nice soft pink with that. And that helps me to know which red and which pink I want to use where. I'll wipe that off and then I'll go back in with the scarlet pink and see how that one spreads. And that's how I decided that I wanted to use my scarlet pink for the insides of the hearts and my carmine pink for the outside of the hat. You can swatch whatever you have too and see what you like. I do the same thing with my blues, my teals. So the green aquamarine, and sometimes I do have to put myself a little note here. So I'll say, this one is S for scarlet. This one's C for carmine. This one is G for green aquamarine. And then this one is going to be D for dark aquamarine. And it really, depends too, the weight of your hand, how much pigment you're putting down to, how it's going to play out when you add the water to it. But this one I really liked. It was, deep aquamarine. I think that's a very appropriate color. That's the color I wound up choosing for most of the stripes here for him. I do use the green aquamarine a little bit. I like to rinse my brush off if I'm going from one color to the next, because I really want to see what I get organically without the other color being mixed with it. This is the lighter one. This is what I used up in the brim of his hat. I just wanted it to be softer. So there's my swatch. That's what shows me what I'm going to use here. The yellow and the gray I'm going to use only in one little place up here, so I don't really need to swatch those. You swatch whatever you like though. So I'll move back over to these pencils, and I'm going to start with the pink in the hat. Okay, I'm going to start with the carmine pink. That was our darker, and I'm going to go right around the edges of the hat and the hearts and fill everything in. And you'll notice I'm just outlining. I'm not going super far into this because you'll be surprised how far the pigment spreads. And I'm not pushing really hard. I'm just laying down a decent amount of pigment so that it can spread to the next heart. So if there's a big gap like here, I feel like that's a pretty wide gap. I might do a little bit in the middle just so that it stretches. And then I'll just move on to my next little heart. And these pencils really do color like a colored pencil. You really could get away with using them like a colored pencil, but I think you're definitely not using them to their full benefit if you don't add the water. The water, I mean, they just come alive. They're so vibrant. And the best thing is that they are like archival quality and they are permanent once you add that water to it. So you can use these on more than just paper. You can use them. I've used them on wood slices before. You can use them, you know, to make ornaments on wood slices, or even like little ceramic blanks that you can pick up at Michael's. I've seen those before, the little ceramic ornaments. You can use these on that too. It's a little bit different texture than paint, but they're super versatile. And a little goes a long way. So after we outline this little hat, you'll see how far that spreads. Okay, so now get my brush. Make sure I've got all the turquoise off the brush, because turquoise and pink make a very yucky brown. And I'll just start here at the edge, and I'm going to move this pink around. I got a little too much water on my brush over here at the side. So I'm not going to push the button for a minute. I'm going to keep pulling that water out here to the middle. But you can see how quickly that breaks down those pencil strokes, and it turns it into a really nice pink. And it happens quickly. You're not spending a lot of time reworking the same area, so you're not getting those fuzzies on your paper. It just happens really fast. And I don't feel like you have a lot of I don't feel like you have a lot of shadowing where you originally put the pencil either. So it's not like you can tell that you only put the pencil in those outlines. It's the gradient that you get is really nice too. It smooths out pretty well. So I just go through and fill those in. Now, if you let this dry, you can layer the pencil over top of with another color over top of it. If you let this dry, you can do that. If you try to layer the Inktense pencils while the paper is still wet, it does rough up the paper a little bit. But if you let it completely dry and then you go back over with another color, you can layer just like you can with traditional watercolor. And you can also layer it with the pan set, the studio set that the Inktense pans. You can layer those together and brighten anything up. So if you're in here and you feel like, you know, I really wish I had this a little deeper, but maybe I'd add some, violet to it or something like that. You can grab a little bit of violet watercolor and throw right into it. And you wind up being able to layer it just like any good watercolor product. All right, so he's evened out. He looks good. And then I can go right in to my scarlet pink and lightly buff a little bit into each heart. Now, I didn't fill these completely in. You can kind of see on this, I used a really subtle approach. I did a little bit of buffing on the right outer side and moved towards the inside. Then I kind of flipped him and worked on this side. But I really only did the pigment on one side. I just liked that really soft look of the inside hearts. So that's what you're going to see me do here too. I'm just going to do a little bit of this scarlet pink on the inside and move that around.
I have a quick question for you, Tabitha.
Yeah,
Do you use a regular pencil sharpener to sharpen the pencils?
I don't. So the cool thing, I actually use the Derwent one. The reason being, it is made for these pencils. So I can use a regular, like my regular sketching pencil with it on the small side, and it works great. But the nice thing about this is it has the big soft side. So like when this one gets low, it sharpens it perfectly. And these are soft cord pencils. So if you love, creamy pencils, like they have the Color Soft line. If you like your colored pencils and you use expensive colored pencils, the pain of having a sharpener eat up your pencils. So this one's great because it doesn't break off much lead. You have all of your pigment, and it really just it preserves the longevity of, you get more bang for your buck out of the pencil. I don't use anything but this Derwent sharpener with them, just because I've eaten up several of them with my regular, like I can't remember, it's just the regular like school type of sharpener. And it's sad when you go through like your favorite color twice as fast because you used a sharpener that wasn't really created for it. And I think that one's pretty inexpensive. It uses 3 batteries maybe, but I haven't had to change the batteries ever, and I use these a lot, so I think it lasts for a while. But I hope that helped answer the question. All right, these little soft hearts are all finished. I want to work my way down now. So I'm going to start with my lighter of the greens. After I swatched, it was the green aquamarine, not the deep. And I want to gently buff some of this around the edge of the little brim of this hat. Now, if you were using regular watercolors, you could definitely do the same thing. I just like to leave some brightness in the center of this. So I would line the outside with your color and kind of pull it in to the center with your watercolor. I feel like these are great, dipping your toes into watercolor because it's a little bit easier to control. I know when I first started doing watercolor, I was a little bit intimidated by the way that my colors would run, and I didn't have as much control as I thought I should over my colors and the way things were moving on my page. And I like these pencils because you have more control over how everything lays on your page. So it's a good one for people that have a hard time with the organic flow of just open pan watercolors. So he has a blue brim and he has his little puffball over here. And again, I'll just go in and throw a little bit of this pigment in here. Okay. Now I'm going to switch over to the deep aquamarine because I want his stripes to be a little darker. And I'm just gonna do the edges of these. Oops, I was going for every other, but I just put my turquoise on both lines. Oopsie daisy. He'll just have an extra turquoise stripe. Now, if you've got a big area to cover with these, I like to use it on its side, and you get a wider stroke with that, and it's just, it lays it down a little bit more smoothly. So you can just sharpen it and use it on its side, and you'll get a nice even look there. I'm going to see if I can erase a little bit out of this. Okay. All right, so he is going to be green. I'm going to skip the one that I accidentally filled in. Now, if you wind up with a spot like this, like where I feel like, I probably could have gone darker and maybe I should have added more to it, you just let it dry and go right back over top of it. You can always add more color back in as soon as it's dry. If you go in with it while it's wet, like I'll show you, if you did it now, it does work, but it's more streaky. I'm gonna try to pull it up and show you what it kind of does. It's a little more streaky, and you can definitely see the lines where you added. It's just really, really harsh. It just looks a little too harsh. Now, the opposite of that, if you did too much and you want to take it away, you can add a little bit of water to it. And then I've got my towel over here. Add water, wipe it off. Add water, wipe it off. And you can see that it's removing the pigment. You're just kind of adding that in. You can also dab it with a paper towel or your towel, and you can lift it right off too. So it's really easy to manage if you feel like you have done something wrong. Now you can see really well in this spot where I went back in and I tried to fill in a little bit more. That does not come out because when I try to lift it with a paper towel or anything, because it was wet. And remember, this is wet. It's permanent when it's wet. So when I'm rubbing it on the wet area, I'm shoving that pigment down into the paper and then it becomes permanent. So I can't lift it off. You can really lift it off when you're working with it, when you've done it soft and then used your water brush over top of it. That really helps. So I don't suggest using it over top of a wet area. I just like to let it dry a little bit and wait. All right, on to pink. So I'll go back with the carmine pink. And I'm going to see if this will cover up this turquoise, which these colors are so vibrant. Most of the time they will. And they layer on top of each other really nicely too. So I can take this pink and layer back over top once it's dry, and that'll give me enough coverage to cover up that turquoise spot where I messed up. Okay. And like a charm, covered it right up. It's not as bright or vivid as the other one. I used a little bit more of the pigment just to make sure I covered up that turquoise, but it's good enough for me. And then I'll just blend this all together. All right. Now, for his little face, I'm going to take a really light layer of this yellow, and I'm just going to put a little bit of the yellow pigment down. And then I want to give his cheeks a little bit of pink. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of, maybe I think I'll use the scarlet pink. I'm going to basically swatch that again over here, but I'm not going to activate it until I'm finished smoothing out his little face here. So you'll see what I do. It's going to be moving the yellow around just to give him a base tone here. And then I'm going to go right into this pink that I've got up here, and I'm going to add it right over the top. So you see that you can swatch it just like using it out of a pan, but you don't really have to draw it on. Now you can draw it on if you wanted to buff a little bit on. I just think I have more control with it this way. This gives me just the right amount of pink that I want. I can pull some of that off and give him some pink cheeks. And I really have a nice amount of control over that. So he looks rosy and happy. And I just pulled it off my little swatch over there. That's why every time I trim watercolor paper, I keep a little pile. Like I have a ridiculous little pile of watercolor paper that I just use for swatches. So that is a great way to use your extras too. Last but not least on this guy, we are going to do his beard and his, well, this one has a mustache. So I'm going to use this neutral gray, and I'm going to use it on the side like I showed you before. I'm going to go give it a little bit of the gray at the top of his beard or of his mustache here. And then I'm going to work that down with my brush. So I'm just going to add the gray up here at the top. And then I'm going to do wider strokes. I'm just using the side of my pencil, wider strokes straight down, just to follow with gravity, the way that a natural bunch of hair would fall. So really lightly, I'm not pushing hard with the tip of it. I'm just shading on the side with this pencil, and I'm just creating little shaded lines here. And then I can go in with his little mustache, and I can do some smaller lines if I want to. If I want to have some detail up in there, I can use a little bit more pigment. Just buff in a little bit more and then pull down some small lines straight down. Okay. So that's how he winds up looking before water. And then we will grab that water brush, make sure there's no pink or turquoise in it. Just make sure it's running clean.
Tabitha, Quick
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
Can you hold up your beard, please, close up so before adding water to it?
yes. So this is the after water and this is before. So I
Great.
just, yep, I just did wide strokes down and then you'll see how we blend it here.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And sometimes it's nice too, just to give yourself, again, back up on this little swatch, give yourself a pile of gray so that you can go in and add some dark tones if you want. All right, so we've got our wet clear brush and we are going to start at the top of his little mustache and we're going to pull that down. Okay. I'm going to go out to the beard and pull some of that down and just take his little mustache. He's going to have a really gray mustache because I added lots of gray in there. And we're just going to start pulling that straight down. Now, if you feel like that was not enough pigment for you and you want more, you want it darker gray to match his little mustache, or if you didn't do a mustache and you just want it to be a little bit darker gray, that's why we have that little swatch chunk up there so that we can add more gray in. So we're just running the water across it and we're pulling it down. On the assorted set of brushes, there's actually, I'll show you. It's not the guy. It's a really thick one that I love for areas like this. You can just do one big brush stroke. He's like a 1/2 inch brush. And it's nice because it smooths everything all at the same time. You can work with either, but I like this for big areas. It does lay a lot more water down than the other one though, so you kind of have to be careful that it doesn't bow your paper up too much. All right, I'm going to dip back into my little gray swatch up here. I'm going to make a puddle so that I can give him a little bit more gray through his beard. So now that this is already wet and I'm adding to it, we're working wet on wet really, where we haven't been so much before. So if you're doing the same exact process that I'm doing, you may find that it spiders out a little bit, and that's okay. It's, you know, it's whimsical, but with that paper already being wet and we're applying pigment to the wet paper, it kind of gets to go where it wants to go. We don't always get to decide. So just be aware that it may go in places that you weren't super prepared for it to go. But I do love the look of it. I think that he's really, really, really cute. And I think that getting to add a little bit of deep dark to his beard makes him stand out a little bit. So I like it. I'll roll with it. And as this dries up, you are going to lose a little bit of your value as your colors dry. So you'll see that it does lighten up a little bit. Traditional watercolors, you lose about 2/3 of your pigment as your piece dries. So if I was using just one of the other pans that I use, I feel like I make everything twice as dark as I want, and then I can come back in and layer. I feel like with this set, with the Inktense pencils in particular, you don't lose any value, you gain value. With the pan set, you don't, I would say you maybe lose 1/4 of the value. So I feel like also dipping your toes into watercolor, this is a really user-friendly set because you don't have to account for a lot of loss of pigment. If you liked him super light, like if you wanted it super, super white, if you wanted to do this again, you could also just take this swatch of gray and just get it little bits in there as well. With this being so dark here, you can also go back in with your gray and after it's dry, and you can accentuate more downstrokes too to give it that variation. You can also take your liner and you can go back through and add more downstrokes with the liner pen to give it more variation as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can run it. The last thing we have to do is outline or fill in our outlined word U. And you can pick any color you want to do that with. I used the Scarlet because we hadn't used it a lot and I just think it pops. So I went in with that, just a really quick fill in of that. Not even edge to edge. I'm gonna make sure I don't have any gray in here, which I do. So I'll just rinse that off and then go right in. And there he is. So that's that. When you are finished with that, you can go back through if you wanted to add some, if you wanted to mimic that color, you could go back over your lettering at the top to kind of draw these two sections together. Again, back over the little swatched guy if you want. You could also take your pencil and go in for a little bit more precise area of shadowing there, but it's a fun way to add a little bit of color to mimic. You could take the green and go over the Gnome-body, whatever you like. They're really easily used together, so you can add as much or as little as you like. If you find little pockets where you're missing some pigment, again, go back into where we swatched and grab a little bit more of the blue and fill them back out and just work with it until you're really happy with it. But I think that for me, this sweet little guy is complete and I love him. Does anybody have any other questions about the process or any of the materials that I used? I think the Derwent, I used the 72 pan set. If you're looking for it in the stores, it's going to have this Derwent logo on it. And it's this is the 72 count. You get 2 layers in this pan. I think there's a 24 count and a 12 count. Julie, you can probably confirm that for us and let me know what sizes they can get, but that has the most colors. There's also the water brush pens and the liner pens. And I'm pretty sure you can grab it all at Michael's. I know you can definitely get the Inktense pencils there as well. Julie, did we have any other questions from anybody before we go? I hope you guys had a great time. I enjoyed redrawing this guy with you guys.
Oh, one quick question. I'm sorry. Do
No
you
problem.
put a fixative on the project?
You don't have to, because once we add this water, it's permanent. So unless you are trying to build layers, I personally use the fixative if I'm trying to go over top of this and I don't want anything to be even a little bit of the pigment to bleed through on my next layer. The fixative is only if you're using it in your process, if you're trying to build layers over top and use it in some sort of like mixed media something, or if you're trying to incorporate something else. Once you add water to this, it's permanent. It's not going anywhere. There's no need for it unless you want it for your process.
Yeah, the Inktense comes in 12, 24, 36, and 72.
Yeah, they're great. Great assortment. And I think the price point for the 12 set is super approachable. I have gotten them for lots of my students as gifts for birthdays and things. Thank you guys so much. Any other questions?
Raina, did you want to tell them about the tags?
Sure, I can. So if anybody, wants to share their little gnome with us after class, once you get it done, or even if you have it done now, please absolutely post it to social media, and be sure that, if you want to tag Tabitha so she sees it on her end, she's
Yes.
at McHarper Manor, as well as hashtag made with McHarper, and then hashtag Derwent art _US, so that our Derwent peeps see it as well. And then of course, hashtag make it with Mike, or make it with Michaels, and hashtag Michaels classes, so that our Michaels team sees all of your fun little gnomes as well.
Yeah, I would love to see them. I would love if you guys kept up with us and did some other online projects with us as well. We have family classes through our Made with McHarper group. We have a Facebook group, and we have an online classroom for intergenerational art for families. We do lots of fun virtual events. We're getting ready to do a gnome paint along too. So I hope you guys have had fun and join me for something else in the future as well. So thanks, guys.
Hey, one other quick
yeah.
question. Sorry, Tabitha.
Go ahead.
One person is asking, like, how can you make the image smaller?
You can make the image smaller, usually depending on what your computer software, whatever you're running. When you go into photo editor, if you open up the photo and you go to print it, it will usually ask you what size you want it printed at. You can usually choose, I know Windows based, they have lots of options where you can choose what type of, if you want like a 5x7, that's what this guy's sized at. I use Mac, so typically I'll just go in and open it in the editor and tell it what size to take it to. So if you have any trouble, check on YouTube how to resize an image for whatever your operating system is. That's helped me in the past.
And also, to make our image darker, they just apply more color, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can layer the pencil or add, you can swatch it up and paint more on, whatever you prefer.
Thanks. I think that's all the questions.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.